"You're under arrest for trespassing," Officer Joel Watkins said with a cold smile. His hand rested on his belt, fingers drumming near his weapon. "Should have left when I told you to." Preston's wife, Elise, stood frozen on the front steps of their own apartment building, her phone shaking in her hand. Their daughter was inside, probably hearing everything through the window. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not at their own home. "This is our building," Elise shouted, her voice cracking. "We own this property. You can't arrest us." Joel laughed. "Lady, I've heard every line in the book. You think I'm stupid? People like you don't own buildings in neighborhoods like this. People like us?" Preston's jaw clenched. Even with metal cutting into his wrists, he kept his voice steady. "What exactly do you mean by that, officer?" The flashing red and blue lights painted the evening sky. Neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, some recording on their phones. Mrs. Chun from apartment 3B covered her mouth in shock. The Rodriguez family stood by their car, whispering. Everyone knew the Murrays. Everyone knew they owned the building. Everyone except Officer Joel Watkins. Joel stepped closer, his breath hot with coffee and something bitter. That you need to learn your place. This is a warning to everyone watching. You don't belong here, and I'm going to make sure." "Joel." Another voice cut through the tension. "What the hell are you doing?" A second police car had arrived. Officer Sarah Bennett stepped out, her face pale with horror. She'd been on the force for 15 years, and she knew this neighborhood. She knew these people. She knew who owned this building. "Stay out of this, Bennett." Joel snapped. "I'm handling it." "Handling what?" Sarah rushed forward. "Do you have any idea who you just arrested?" Joel's confident smile flickered. "Just for a second. Some punk who wouldn't show me his ID when I asked. Some woman who got in my face. They were disturbing the peace, and they refused to leave when I ordered them to vacate the property." "Vacate the property?" Sarah's voice rose. "Joel, they own the property. Preston and Elise Murray are the landlords. They've owned this building for 7 years. The color drained from Joel's face, but he didn't unlock the handcuffs. Instead, his jaw set harder. His eyes went dark. And when he spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. "I don't care what some paperwork says. I don't care if they have a deed or a mortgage or whatever story they're selling. I gave them a lawful order to show identification and to leave the premises. They refused. That's obstruction and trespassing. The law is the law." Preston met his wife's eyes across the hood of the police car. In that moment, they both knew the same thing. This wasn't about the law. This was about something much older, much uglier, and much more dangerous. This was about a man who couldn't stand seeing them succeed. Couldn't stand seeing them own property in a neighborhood that was getting nicer every year. Couldn't stand that they were black and they were winning. "You're making a huge mistake," Elise said quietly. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and determined had settled over her. "The biggest mistake of your career." Joel pushed Preston toward the police car. "The only mistake was you people thinking you could." "Enough!" Sarah stepped between them. "I'm calling Lieutenant Harris. Right now. You need to uncuff Mr. Murray before this gets worse." "It's already worse," Preston said. His voice was calm, but his heart hammered in his chest. "It got worse the moment he decided that my skin color meant I didn't deserve to be treated with respect. It got worse when he assumed I was a criminal on my own property. It got worse when he decided that people like me don't belong in neighborhoods like this." A phone chimed. Then another, and another. The neighbors were posting videos online. #RacistCop was already starting to trend locally. Someone had called the local news. A reporter was on the way. And in Preston's pocket, his phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. But Joel Watkins didn't know any of this yet. He was still standing there, hand on his weapon, feeling powerful, feeling right, feeling like he was in control. He had no idea that in exactly 47 minutes, his entire world would crumble. He had no idea that the Murrays weren't just building owners. They were connected, they were smart, and they were about to become his worst nightmare. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand how this moment happened, how a decorated police officer could stand on a public street and arrest two innocent people in front of dozens of witnesses. We need to go back. We need to go back to 3 weeks earlier, when Joel Watkins first saw the Murrays and decided they didn't belong. We need to go back to the moment this whole nightmare began. 3 weeks earlier, the morning sun painted Oakland Avenue in shades of gold and amber. Preston Murray stood on the roof of his 6-unit apartment building, coffee in hand, looking out over the neighborhood he'd grown up in. It had changed a lot in 7 years. New restaurants lined the corners. The old warehouse had been converted into artist studios. Young professionals walked dogs that cost more than his first car. The neighborhood was being reborn, and Preston and Elise had made a bet that paid off. They'd bought this building when everyone said they were crazy, when the banks wouldn't look at them twice, when Preston's own father said they should rent forever and not take the risk. But Elise had believed. She'd crunched the numbers late into the night. She'd seen what was coming. The revitalization, the investment, the transformation. They'd scraped together every penny, called in every favor, and made it happen. Now their building was worth 3 times what they'd paid. Their tenants loved them. They'd hired a local handyman, sponsored the community garden, and became the landlords they'd wished they'd had when they were renters. Life was good, until Officer Joel Watkins moved into apartment 2A across the street. Preston didn't know his name that first day. He just saw a white guy in his 30s moving boxes into Mrs. Patterson's old place, the one with the blue door and the flower boxes. New neighbor, Preston had told Elise that evening. Hope he's quiet, she laughed, scrolling through rental applications for their vacant unit on the 2nd floor. They had no idea. The first sign came 3 days later. Preston was outside watering the flowers in the building's front planters. It was Sunday morning, peaceful and warm. He wore old jeans and a college t-shirt, humming along to music from his earbuds. A police car rolled up slowly and stopped. The window came down. "Excuse me," a voice called out. Preston pulled out an earbud. "Yeah." Officer Joel Watkins sat in the driver's seat, mirrored sunglasses, reflecting Preston's face. "You work here." "I own here," Preston said with a friendly smile. "Preston Murray. My wife and I own the building." Joel didn't return the smile. "I'm going to need to see some ID." Preston's smile faded a bit. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Just doing my job." "ID, please." Something in his tone made Preston's chest tighten. That careful politeness that wasn't polite at all. That edge underneath. He'd heard it before, in 100 different situations throughout his life. But he was on his own property. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And he didn't have his wallet. "My ID is in my side," Preston said carefully. "But like I said, I own this building. Is there something specific you need?" "Someone called in a suspicious person," Joel said. His hand rested on his car door, ready to step out. "Description matches you." Preston looked up and down the empty street. It was Sunday morning. Most people were still asleep or at church. Who would have called? Suspicious how? Preston asked. "Just need to verify you belong here." Joel opened his door and stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moving with that particular authority that some cops use like a weapon. "ID now." And that's when Preston saw it. A flicker of movement in the window of apartment 2A across the street. The new neighbor, Joel himself, lived right there. This wasn't a random patrol. This wasn't response to a real call. This was targeted. "I'll go get my wallet," Preston said slowly. He set down the watering can and turned toward his building's entrance. "Wait right there." Joel's voice was sharp. Preston stopped. His heart was racing now. Stay calm, he told himself. Stay calm and don't give him a reason. "I'm just going to get my ID," Preston said. "Like you asked. I didn't give you permission to leave." The air felt thick and heavy. A bird called from somewhere overhead. A car drove by slowly, the driver staring at the scene. "Officer," Preston said, keeping his voice level, "I've told you who I am. I've offered to get my ID. What exactly do you need from me?" Joel stepped closer. "I need you to understand that when I give you an order, you follow it. I don't care if you rent here or squat here or whatever your situation is. When I tell you to do something, you do it. I own here, Preston repeated. This is my property, and I haven't done anything wrong. They stood there, 10 feet apart, locked in a moment that felt like it could tip either way. Then Joel's radio crackled. A real call, a real emergency somewhere else. He glanced down at it, annoyed. Stay out of trouble, Joel said finally. He got back in his car and drove away, leaving Preston standing there with his heart pounding and his hands shaking. Elise found him 20 minutes later, still standing outside. Baby, she touched his shoulder. What's wrong? And Preston told her. Everything. It's going to be fine, Elise said, but her eyes were worried. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe someone really did call something in, but they both knew better. And when Joel Watkins drove past their building twice more that week, slowing down each time to stare, they knew this was just beginning. What they didn't know was how much worse it would get. They didn't know about Joel's history, the complaints filed against him in his last district, the patterns, the warnings. They didn't know that Joel had specifically requested to transfer to this neighborhood, to this precinct. They didn't know that he was part of something bigger, something organized, something that wanted to push back against the changes in the neighborhood. But they were about to find out that if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter what they look like or where they're from, hit that subscribe button. Only people who support bullies and racists like Joel Watkins won't subscribe. Show him we won't tolerate this behavior. Subscribe now. The parking ticket started appearing on Tuesday. Preston walked out to his car, parked legally in front of his own building, in a spot he'd parked in 1,000 times, and found a bright orange ticket under his windshield wiper. Street cleaning violation, he read aloud, confused. But it was Tuesday. Street cleaning was on Thursdays. Everyone on the block knew that. He looked up and down the street. No other cars had tickets. Just his. Must be a mistake, he told Elise that evening, tossing the ticket on the kitchen counter. The next morning, there was another one. Expired registration. Preston's registration wasn't expired. He'd renewed it 2 months ago. He had the sticker right there on his license plate. Clear as day. This is a mistake, Elise said, picking up both tickets. Her jaw was tight. This is harassment. We don't know that, Preston said, but even he didn't believe it. By Friday, he had 5 tickets. Each one was bogus, violations he hadn't committed, rules that didn't exist, times that were wrong. And every single ticket was signed by Officer J. Watkins. We need to report this, Elise said. She was already on her laptop, researching how to file a complaint. And say what? Preston leaned against the counter, exhausted. A cop is giving me fake parking tickets. Because, what? Because he doesn't like me? We need proof it's personal. 5 tickets in 1 week isn't proof enough. Preston wanted to argue, but she was right. This was deliberate. This was targeted. This was Joel Watkins trying to make their lives miserable. But it got worse. Much worse. That Saturday, Preston and Elise hosted their monthly tenant meeting in the building's small community room. It was something they'd started when they first bought the property, a chance for everyone to voice concerns, share news, and build community. All 5 of their tenants showed up. Mrs. Chun, an elderly widow who'd lived there for 20 years. The Rodriguez family with their 2 young kids, David Miller, a freelance graphic designer in his 20s, and the newlyweds Amy and Tom Patterson, who just moved in 3 months ago. Thanks, everyone, for coming, Elise started, smiling around a circle of folding chairs. We wanted to check in about the new landscaping, and Preston has some updates about the roof repairs. A loud bang on the front door interrupted her. Everyone jumped. Bang, bang, bang. Police! Open up. Preston's stomach dropped. He walked to the door slowly, Elise right behind him. Through the peephole, he could see Joel Watkins, along with another officer Preston didn't recognize. He opened the door. Can I help you, officer? Joel pushed past him without waiting for permission. We got a noise complaint. Party's over. Party? Preston looked back at his tenants, who were sitting quietly in a circle with coffee cups and papers. This is a tenant meeting. We have them every month. I don't care what you call it, Joel said, walking through the hallway. We got a complaint about excessive noise, possible drug use, and disturbance of the peace. Drug use. Elise's voice rose. That's ridiculous. There are kids here. The Rodriguez children clung to their mother, eyes wide with fear. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down, Joel said, his hand moving to his belt again. That same casual threat. We're having a quiet meeting in our own building, Preston said, trying to keep his voice steady. You can see there's no party, no noise, no drugs. Whoever called this and was lying. The second officer, his name tag read Thompson, looked uncomfortable. Joel, there's clearly nothing going on here. Maybe we should. Are you questioning my judgment? Joel turned on him sharply. Thompson shut up. Joel walked slowly around the room, making eye contact with each tenant. Mrs. Chun looked down at her hands. David Miller swallowed hard. The Rodriguez kids started crying softly. I'm going to let you off with a warning this time, Joel said finally, like he was doing them a huge favor. But if I get called back here again, I'm citing everyone in this room. Understood? Nobody spoke. I said, understood? Yes, officer, Mrs. Chin whispered. Joel smiled. That cold, satisfied smile. Then he walked out, Thompson following with his head down. The moment the door closed, chaos erupted. What just happened? Amy Patterson asked, her voice shaking. That cop lives across the street, David Miller said. I've seen him watching the building. He's doing this on purpose, Elise said. He's trying to intimidate us. Mrs. Chin stood up slowly. She was 73 years old and had survived a war, an immigration journey, and 40 years in America. Her voice was quiet but steady. I've seen this before, she said. Men with power who don't like seeing others succeed. Men who think only certain people deserve certain things. She looked directly at Preston and Elise. He will not stop. Men like him never stop until they win, or until they're forced to stop. What do we do? Asked Tom Patterson. Preston wanted to have an answer. He wanted to be strong and confident and tell everyone it would be okay. But he didn't know. All he knew was that Joel Watkins had just terrorized his tenants in their own home, had made children cry, had threatened innocent people, and he'd done it all under the cover of his badge. The next 2 weeks were a nightmare. Joel called in violations on the building. False reports of broken fire alarms, blocked exits, illegal modifications. Each report meant an inspector visit, a fine to fight, hours of Preston's time, proving the claims were fake. He pulled over Elise twice while she was driving to work. Both times, he let her sit in her car for 45 minutes before approaching, then gave her a warning for suspicious behavior. He started parking his patrol car directly in front of the building during his off hours, just sitting there, watching. Tenants started complaining. David Miller was looking at other apartments. The Rodriguez family asked if they could break their lease early. We're losing them, Elise said one night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling. He's winning. Preston rolled over to face her. We'll figure something out. How? He's a cop, Preston. He has all the power. He can make up whatever he wants, and who's going to believe us over him? We document everything, Preston said. We keep records. We get cameras if we have to. And then what? We take it to his supervisor. His supervisor, who's probably his friend? The system that's designed to protect him? Preston didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, Elise was right. They were fighting someone who had the law on his side, or at least he had the uniform. And in America, that uniform meant something. It meant authority. It meant being believed. It meant being able to destroy someone's life and call it just doing my job. But what Joel didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the Murrays weren't giving up. They were planning. They were researching. And they were about to discover something about Joel Watkins that would change everything. It was a Wednesday evening when Elise found it. She'd been digging through public records online, looking for anything she could use. Joel's employment history, his background, anything that might help them file a formal complaint that would actually be taken seriously. And there it was. Preston, she called out. Her voice was strange. Preston, come here. Right now. He ran into their home office. Elise's laptop screen glowed in the dim room. "Look at this," she said, pointing. It was a news article from 2 years ago. Different city, different precinct. The headline read, "Officer under investigation for racial profiling claims." The article featured photo. Officer Joel Watkins. "He's done this before." Preston breathed. "He's done this exact thing before." They read together, leaning close to the screen. The article detailed complaints from Black and Latino residents in Joel's previous neighborhood. False stops, harassment, intimidation. 8 formal complaints in 18 months. Why is he still a cop? Elise whispered. Preston scrolled down. Investigation found insufficient evidence. He was transferred to our precinct as part of a Fresh Start initiative. They looked at each other in the blue light of the computer screen. They didn't fire him, Elise said slowly. They just moved him. They moved the problem. To our neighborhood, Preston finished. More scrolling revealed more articles, more complaints, more patterns. Joel Watkins had been doing this for years, in different places, to different families, and every time the department protected him, transferred him, gave him a fresh start, while his victims were left to deal with the damage. "We need to tell someone," Elise said. "We need to go public with this." "We need proof," Preston countered. "Real proof, not just articles. We need to catch him in the act." "How?" Preston thought for a moment. An idea was forming. Risky, maybe dangerous, but it might work. "We set up cameras," he said slowly, "everywhere. Every angle of our building, the street, everything. We document every single thing he does." And then a loud crash from outside cut him off. They ran to the window. Joel Watkins stood on the sidewalk below, next to Preston's car. The driver's side window was smashed. Glass glittered on the ground like tiny diamonds. Joel looked up directly at their window. Even from 3 floors up, they could see his smile. He pointed at Preston. Then he drew his finger across his throat. A threat, a promise. And in that moment, Preston and Elise knew this wasn't just harassment anymore. This was war. If Joel Watkins makes you angry, if you think cops who abuse their power should be held accountable, smash that like button. And if you think Preston and Elise deserve justice, drop a comment saying #Justice for the Mighties. Show Joel that bullies never win. Leave your comment now. Preston didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table with his laptop, making phone calls, sending emails, researching. By dawn, he'd contacted 3 security companies, a civil rights lawyer, and a journalist who'd written about police misconduct. Elise found him there at 6 in the morning, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. "Tell me you have a plan," she said. Preston looked up at his wife. Her eyes were tired but determined. They'd been together since college, through good times and hard times, and he'd never loved her more than he did in that moment. "I have a plan," he said, "but you're not going to like it." By Monday afternoon, their building looked the same as always, but hidden in the corners, under the eaves, disguised as decorations, were 12 cameras. Every angle of the property was covered. Every entrance, every sidewalk, every parking space. And every single one was recording. "This feels like we're preparing for war," Elise said, watching the security company installer finish the last camera. "That's because we are," Preston replied. The installer, a middle-aged black man named Jerome, paused his work. "Y'all dealing with that cop across the street?" Preston and Elise exchanged glances. "How did you know?" Jerome climbed down from his ladder. "Because you're the 4th property on this block I've installed cameras for this month." Everyone's got the same story. Officer Watkins sees successful black folks moving into the neighborhood and decides to make their lives hell. 4th property? Elise leaned forward. "You mean we're not the only ones?" "Not even close." Jerome pulled out his phone and showed them photos. The Johnsons 3 blocks over. He had their teenage son pulled over 7 times in 2 weeks. The Grants on Maple Street. He called child services on them, claiming neglect. Took them 3 weeks to clear it up. And the Washingtons? He got their business shut down for a week over fake health code violations. Preston felt his blood run cold. This is bigger than us. Way bigger, Jerome agreed. Word in the community is that Watkins is part of some group, cops and property owners who don't like the way the neighborhood's changing, don't like seeing certain people succeed. Do you have proof? Elise asked. Jerome shook his head. Just whispers. But I'll tell you what, every family he's targeted has one thing in common, and it ain't that they're breaking any laws. After Jerome left, Preston and Elise sat in their living room, processing. We need to talk to the other families, Elise said, if we all come forward together. It's still our word against the cops, Preston interrupted. We need evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. Then we wait, Elise said. We let the cameras record. And next time Joel tries something, we've got him. They didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Preston was outside trimming the hedges when Joel's patrol car pulled up. Preston's heart started racing, but he kept trimming. Stay calm. Stay normal. The cameras are recording. Joel got out his car slowly. Afternoon. Officer, Preston replied, not looking up. You know, Joel said, walking closer, I've been thinking. This is a nice building you got here. Real nice property. Valuable. Preston said nothing, just kept trimming. Must be hard, though, keeping up with all the codes, all the regulations. Easy to slip up. Easy to find yourself in violation of something. Now Preston looked up. Is there something specific you need, officer? Joel smiled, just being neighborly. See, I worry about you. Nice family like yours, working so hard. Be a shame if something went wrong. Building gets condemned, property gets seized, you lose everything. Are you threatening me? Preston asked quietly. Threatening? Joel's eyes went wide with fake innocence. I'm protecting you. I'm telling you how things work in this neighborhood. This is MY neighborhood now. And people who don't respect that, people who don't show proper gratitude to those who keep them safe, he stepped closer. They tend to have accidents. Preston's hands tightened on the hedge trimmers. Of course, Joel continued. People who cooperate, people who understand how things work, they do just fine. Maybe you sell this building to the right buyer. Maybe you move somewhere more appropriate. Maybe everyone wins. You want us to sell our property, Preston said slowly, understanding dawning. I'm just saying it would solve a lot of problems. For everyone. Joel glanced up at the building. Wouldn't want your wife to have any more trouble while she's driving. Wouldn't want any more issues with your tenants. Wouldn't want anything to happen to that pretty little daughter of yours. Preston dropped the hedge trimmers. Did you just threaten my child? His voice was deadly quiet. Joel held up his hands. I didn't threaten anyone. I simply stated facts. Bad things happen in neighborhoods like this. Kids get hurt. Accidents happen. Unless, of course, they have proper protection. Get off my property. Preston's fists clenched. Or what? Joel stepped even closer, his face inches from Preston's. You gonna hit a cop? Please do. Give me a reason. For a long moment, they stood there. Preston could feel his pulse in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to fight, to defend his family, to protect what was his. But that's what Joel wanted. An excuse, a reason to arrest him, hurt him, maybe even kill him. So Preston did the hardest thing he'd ever done. He stepped back. Have a good day, officer, he said through gritted teeth. Joel laughed. That's what I thought. You people always back down eventually. He walked back to his car, got in, and drove away. Preston stood there, shaking with rage and fear and helplessness. But the cameras had caught everything. Every word, every threat, every moment. That night, Preston and Elise watched the footage with their lawyer, Marcus. No, wait. They needed a different name. Their lawyer, Robert Fletcher, sat in their living room, watching the video on his tablet. His face grew darker with each passing second. This is good, Robert said finally. This is very good. Clear threats, clear harassment, and he mentioned your daughter specifically. That's a major escalation. What do we do with it? Elise asked. We file a formal complaint with Internal Affairs. We send copies to the mayor's office, the police chief, and the local news. Robert looked at them seriously. But I need to warn you, this is going to get worse before it gets better. When we file this, Joel's going to know. And men like him don't take kindly to being exposed. He's already threatening our daughter, Preston said. How much worse can it get? Robert didn't answer. He didn't have to. They all knew the answer. It could get much worse. But they filed a complaint anyway. The next morning, Robert hand-delivered the footage in a detailed report to Internal Affairs, the police chief, the mayor's office, and 3 local news stations. By noon, the story was everywhere. Local officer accused of harassment and threats. The headlines read, "The footage of Joel threatening Preston went viral online. Hashtag Justice for the Murrays started trending. People were outraged. Preston and Elise watched the news coverage from their living room, barely believing it was real. We did it," Elise whispered. "We actually did it." Preston squeezed her hand. "Maybe. We'll see what happens." What happened was chaos. The police department issued a statement saying they took all complaints seriously and were investigating. Joel was placed on administrative leave, with pay. The community rallied, with dozens of people coming forward with their own stories of harassment by Officer Watkins. The Johnsons, the Grants, the Washingtons, all the families Jerome had mentioned, plus more. A pattern of abuse spanning months, maybe years. It looked like justice might actually happen. For 3 beautiful days, Preston and Elise dared to hope. And then everything fell apart. The police union released their own statement. They claimed the footage was taken out of context. They said Joel was investigating suspicious activity, and the Murrays had edited the video to make him look bad. The police chief, Joel's boss, went on TV and defended him. Officer Watkins is a decorated member of our force with years of exemplary service. We stand behind our officers. The mayor's office went silent. Internal Affairs said their investigation would take several months. And the news cycle moved on to the next story. Just like that, the momentum was gone. The outrage faded. The attention shifted elsewhere. Joel got his badge back after 1 week. 1 week. And the first thing he did was drive past their building, slowly, staring up at their window. The message was clear. You tried to destroy me and you failed. Now it's my turn. It's not over, Robert told him on the phone. We can file a civil lawsuit. We can keep fighting. But Preston and Elise were exhausted. Their tenants were scared. Their daughter had nightmares. Their savings were draining away on legal fees. And Joel Watkins was still a cop, still had his badge, still had all the power. What do we do? Elise asked that night, lying in bed. Preston had no answer. He'd played by the rules, done everything right, gotten evidence, filed proper complaints, worked with lawyers, and the system had protected Joel anyway. What was left? The answer came 2 days later, in the worst possible way. Preston was at work when his phone rang. Elise. She never called during the day unless it was important. Preston. Her voice was shaking. Joel just pulled me over. He's saying my license is suspended. He's saying he's going to arrest me. He's saying... The line went dead. Preston's blood turned to ice. He ran to his car, called Robert, called 911, called everyone he could think of, and he drove like his life depended on it, because Elise's life might actually depend on it. He made it to the scene in 12 minutes, the longest 12 minutes of his life. Joel's patrol car was pulled off to the side of the road. Elise's car was behind it, and Joel had Elise in handcuffs. What are you doing? Preston shouted, jumping out of his car. Your wife was driving with a suspended license. Joel said calmly, I'm placing her under arrest. Her license isn't suspended. This is retaliation. Sir, you need to calm down. I am calm. You're arresting my wife for no reason. A crowd was gathering. People were filming. The scene was being recorded from a dozen angles. And that's when Joel made his fatal mistake. He got cocky. Maybe, Joel said, loud enough for everyone to hear. If you people had taken my advice and left when you had the chance, none of this would be happening. But you wanted to fight. You wanted to make this difficult. So now you face the consequences. The crowd murmured. Phones kept recording. Joel didn't care. He thought he was untouchable. Where are you taking her? Preston demanded. Downtown. For processing. Joel opened his car door. You can pick her up in a few hours. Unless, of course, we find other violations. Could take days. He was about to put Elise in the car when another police vehicle pulled up. Officer Sarah Bennett stepped out, and behind her was a news van. If you're furious at Joel for arresting an innocent woman, if you think this abuse of power has gone too far, comment "Justice Now" below. And if you think dirty cops like Joel deserve to lose their badge, hit that subscribe button. Only people who support corrupt police won't subscribe. Stand with Preston and Elise. Subscribe now. Sarah Bennett looked at Joel with disgust on her face. Joel, what are you doing? She asked, walking toward him quickly. Police business, Bennett. Stay out of it. Joel's hand moved toward his belt. I ran the license, Sarah said, holding up her phone. Elise Murray's license is not suspended. It's active and valid. You lied. The crowd gasped. Phones captured every word. Joel's face turned red. I don't know what system you're using, but mine clearly shows. Your system shows exactly what mine does, Sarah interrupted. You're making a false arrest, Joel. Take the handcuffs off. Now. The news camera was rolling. The reporter, a young woman named Jessica Huang, stepped forward with her microphone. Officer Watkins, can you explain why you're arresting Mrs. Murray? Joel spun toward her. Get that camera out of my face. This is a public street. We have every right to film. Jessica didn't back down. Mrs. Murray, can you tell us what happened? He pulled me over for no reason, Elise said, her voice shaking but strong. He said my license was suspended, but it's not. This is the 5th time he stopped me this month. He's been harassing my family for weeks. That's a lie, Joel shouted. We have video evidence, Preston said, stepping forward. He pulled out his phone. Hours of footage. Threats, intimidation, false accusations. All of it documented. Jessica turned to Joel. Officer Watkins, what you say to these accusations? Joel looked around. At Sarah. At the cameras. At the growing crowd of people watching, recording, witnessing. He was trapped and he knew it. These people are criminals, Joel said desperately. They're trespassing on property they don't own. They're running illegal operations. We own the building, Elise said clearly. My husband and I bought it 7 years ago. We're the legal owners. Impossible, Joel sneered. People like you don't own property in neighborhoods like this. The crowd went silent. Even through his panic, Joel had said the quiet part out loud. People like us? Preston repeated. What do you mean, Officer Watkins? Say it clearly, for the camera. Joel realized his mistake too late. His mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Sarah stepped between them. Joel, take the handcuffs off Mrs. Murray. That's an order. You don't give me orders. Joel's voice was rising, getting desperate. I'm a senior officer, and you're making an unlawful arrest based on false information. Sarah's voice was calm but firm. Remove the handcuffs, or I'll remove them myself, and place you under arrest for abuse of power. For a long moment, Joel didn't move. His face was twisted with rage, and something else, fear. He was finally realizing that his protection was gone. The cameras, the witnesses, the other cop willing to stand against him. He couldn't get away with it this time. Slowly, shaking with anger, Joel unlocked Elise's handcuffs. She rubbed her wrists and walked straight to Preston, who wrapped his arms around her. This isn't over, Joel said quietly, but his microphone picked it up. You people think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. Actually, a new voice said, I think it's you who has no idea what's coming. Everyone turned. A black man in an expensive suit walked through the crowd. He was tall, confident, and carried himself with authority. Who are you? Joel demanded. Deputy Mayor Anthony Brooks. The man said, showing his identification. And I've been reviewing the complaints against you, Officer Watkins. Dozens of them, all following the same pattern. all targeting black and brown families in this neighborhood. Joel's face went pale. I've also been speaking with the police chief, Deputy Mayor Brooks continued, about how you were transferred here after similar complaints in your previous district, about how you were given a second chance that you clearly didn't deserve. I was clear of those charges, Joel said weakly. Clear because of lack of evidence, not because you were innocent. Brooks looked at Sarah. Officer Bennett, please escort Officer Watkins to the station. He's suspended pending a full investigation. You can't do this. Joel exploded. I have rights. I have union protection. You have the right to remain silent, Sarah said, stepping toward him. I suggest you use it. This is because of them. Joel pointed at Preston and Elise. They're liars. They're manipulators. They're property owners being harassed by a racist cop, Brooks said flatly. And thanks to their documentation and courage in coming forward, we now have enough evidence to remove you from the force permanently. Joel lunged toward Preston. You ruined my life. Sarah caught him, pushing him back. Joel, don't make this worse. Worse. Joel laughed bitterly. How could it be worse? They win? They get to stay? They get to own property and live here and act like they belong. They do belong, Sarah said quietly. They bought property legally. They've been model landlords. They've contributed to this community. You're the one who doesn't belong here. The crowd erupted in applause. Joel looked around at all the faces, black, white, Asian, Latino, all united against him, all seeing him for what he really was. A bully, a racist, a man who abused his power because he couldn't stand seeing others succeed. Take him in, Brooks said. Sarah led Joel to her patrol car. He went quietly now, all the fight gone out of him. As the car pulled away, the crowd cheered. Jessica turned to Preston and Elise. How do you feel right now? Preston looked at his wife. They'd been through hell. They'd been threatened, harassed, humiliated. They'd almost lost everything, but they'd stood their ground. Tired, Preston said honestly, but relieved and grateful that there are people like Officer Bennett and Deputy Mayor Brooks who actually care about justice. What happens now? Jessica asked. Elise smiled for the first time in weeks. Now, we go home, to our building, and we keep living our lives. That's all we ever wanted to do. The interview ended. The crowd dispersed. Deputy Mayor Brooks promised to stay in touch about the investigation, and Preston and Elise Murray walked back to their car, hand in hand, free at last. But there was still one more chapter to this story, one more piece that needed to fall into place. Because Joel Watkins wasn't done yet. If you believe justice was served and dirty cops like Joel should never wear a badge again, smash that like button. Comment justice served. If you're proud of Preston and Elise for standing strong. Only people who think racism and abuse of power are okay won't engage. Show the world you stand for what's right. Like and comment now. 3 days later, Joel Watkins showed up at the Murray's building one last time. He wasn't wearing his uniform. He'd been officially suspended without pay, pending a criminal investigation. The union had dropped him. The police chief had publicly apologized to the Maui's and promised reforms. Joel had lost everything, and he blamed Preston and Elise for all of it. Preston saw him first. He was taking out the trash when he noticed Joel standing across the street, just staring at the building. No badge, no gun, just a broken man filled with hate. Their eyes met. Joel started walking toward him. Preston's heart raced. He pulled out his phone, ready to call 911, but Joel held up his hands. I'm not here to fight, Joel said. His voice was tired, defeated. I need to understand something. Understand what? Preston kept his distance. Why here? Joel gestured at the building. Why this neighborhood? Why couldn't you just stay where you belonged? Preston felt anger rise in his chest. Where I belonged? You mean where you think people who look like me belong? This was a good neighborhood, Joel continued, like he hadn't heard. Quiet, safe, normal. And then people like you started moving in, buying property, changing things, making it feel like it wasn't ours anymore. It was never just yours, Preston said firmly. This neighborhood belongs to everyone who lives here. Black, white, everyone. We bought our property legally. We pay our taxes. We take care of our tenants. We have every right to be here. Joel laughed bitterly. Rights. Everyone talks about rights. But what about NY rights? What about people like me who grew up here? Who watched everything change? Change isn't the same as losing something, Preston said. The neighborhood got better, safer, more diverse. That threatens you because you can't stand seeing black people succeed. I'm not racist. Joel shouted, and for a moment, Preston saw real pain in his eyes. I've worked with black cops. I've had black friends. I don't hate black people. But you hate seeing us own property in your neighborhood, Preston said quietly. You hate seeing us succeed where you think we don't belong. That's racism, Joel, even if you don't want to call it that. Joel stood there silent. For the first time, he had no comeback, no defense, no justification. I lost my job, he said finally. My career, everything I worked for, because of you. No, Preston corrected. Because of your choices. You decided to harass us. You decided to abuse your power. You made threats. All we did was refuse to be victims. A car pulled up. It was Officer Sarah Bennett, in her personal vehicle. She got out and walked over, positioning herself between the two men. Joel, she said calmly, you need to leave. I'm on a public street, Joel said. You're violating the restraining order the Mays filed yesterday. Sarah pulled out her phone. Leave now, or I call this in and you get arrested. Your choice. Joel looked at Preston one last time. Was it worth it? Destroying my life? We didn't destroy your life, Preston said. We just refused to let you destroy ours. Joel turned and walked away. They watched until he got in his car and drove off. Sarah turned to Preston. You okay? Yeah. Preston let out a long breath. Yeah, I am. He won't be back, Sarah said. The department is watching him closely. And between you and me, he's facing criminal charges. False arrest, harassment, abuse of power. He's looking at jail time. Preston nodded. He should have felt victorious. But mostly he just felt tired. Thank you, he said to Sarah, for standing up, for doing the right thing. It's my job, Sarah said, and I'm sorry it took so long. I should have spoken up sooner. You spoke up when it mattered, Preston said. That's what counts. That evening, Preston and Elise gathered their tenants in the community room. All 5 of them came, even David Miller, who'd been looking at other apartments. We wanted to thank you all, Elise began, for standing with us, for being patient, for not giving up on this building. Are you kidding? Mrs. Chun said. You two fought for all of us. You showed us what courage looks like. Officer Watkins is gone, Preston added. He won't be bothering anyone anymore. And the city has promised better training, better accountability. Things are going to change. The Rodriguez children ran up and hugged Preston's legs. Their mother smiled with tears in her eyes. You made us feel safe again, she said. Thank you. After the meeting, Preston and Elise stood on their building's front steps, looking out at the neighborhood they fought so hard to stay in. The sun was setting, painting Oakland Avenue in gold and orange. Neighbors walked their dogs. Kids played on the sidewalk. The Rodriguez family's laughter floated from their window. Life was returning to normal. We did it, Elise said, leaning against her husband. We did, Preston agreed. We stood our ground. Do you think he learned anything? Elise asked. Joel, do you think he understands now why what he did was wrong? Preston thought about the broken look in Joel's eyes, the confusion, the inability to see his own racism even when confronted with it. Maybe, Preston said. Maybe not. But that's not our responsibility. We didn't fight to change him. We fought to protect ourselves, our family, our home. And we won, Elise said. And we won, Preston repeated. They stood there together as the stars began to appear overhead. Their building stood strong behind them. Their tenants were safe inside. Their daughter was doing her homework upstairs. They'd faced hatred and came out stronger. They'd faced injustice and demanded accountability. They'd faced a system designed to protect the powerful, and they'd broken through anyway. Because that's what you do when your home, your family, and your dignity are on the line. You stand your ground. You fight back. And you never, ever give up. The Murray family had won their battle. But more than that, they'd sent a message to everyone who'd been watching, everyone who'd faced similar struggles, everyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong. You have a right to be here. You have a right to succeed. You have a right to live without fear. And when someone tries to take that away from you, you fight with evidence, with courage, with community, and you win. This is the end of Preston and Elise's story, but it's a reminder to all of us. Stand up against injustice wherever you see it. If the story moved you, if it made you angry, if it inspired you, subscribe so you never miss stories about real people fighting for what's right. Like this video to tell YouTube that stories about justice matter. And comment below telling us about a time you stood up for what was right. Only people who support bullies and racists won't engage. Show that you stand for justice. Subscribe, like, and comment now. Remember, evil wins when good people do nothing. Don't be silent. Stand up. Speak out. Fight back. Justice always wins when we stand together.